Yeah, hello everybody. Tosca told me to put some highs and lows in my voice, so that was the high. So, a year ago, we had not met yet. We hadn't started messaging each other on OkCupid yet. We were not on each other's radar at this point in time 1 year ago. This is going to be tied into the dating and relationships course that I'm going to do. This is probably the first of many videos of that. So we're going to dive into what we each did to prepare. I can speak for myself on that point. Tosca might do a video later on her perspective. We'll talk about how we knew we were the ones for each other and that we were different than other people that we had dated before. We'll talk about what we put on our dating profiles. The kind of some do's and don'ts of that. There's a lot out there. How to communicate with each other, there's a lot of do's and don'ts of that. Some obvious being like, don't send inappropriate pictures, don't ask inappropriate questions, just be like a genuine human. How did we adjust to one another? Our relationship started and happened pretty quickly. We have a kiddo that was hers from before they met me, and I had to adjust to being a parent pretty quickly, and I've never done that before. I have dogs, but human children are much different than dogs, I've learned. And our adjustments of, she thought that I was losing something because I used to travel all the time and I used to go to a lot of concerts and things like that. But I look at it as gaining far more than not traveling for a few years because, it's more important to be at home. So those are kind of some highlights. Let's start with, what do you fight about? If you're in a relationship, what are your major points of tension and fighting and arguments and frustration? Either something that is in your control, that you do yourself, that you know will set your partner off, or that he or she does. For some people, it might be something as innocent and simple as leaving laundry on the floor, or not doing the dishes, or leaving the door unlocked, or just everyday little things like that that just go undone or ignored. Other things might be a bit more serious, such as using mean language or an angry tone or harsh words, or starting a fight just because everything is going okay. It might be a habit that's hung around, such as one of you smokes and you've tried to quit, but it drives the other one crazy that you still haven't. There might be a physical abuse, there might be mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, any of those things. That gets into something far more serious that we can work through as well, but for now, let's focus on the things that are easily within our control. For example, I do laundry differently than Tosca, and she does dishes differently than I do. So we've learned how the other person likes to do those things because it's important to each of us, and so we try to accommodate each other in those things, in those areas. There have been a few times where I've gotten home from work late or gone out somewhere to run some errands or something like that, and she thought, Beth is going out and doing this, she's spending this time doing this, what's one thing that I could do to make her feel good when she comes home? And that's like just picking up the house really quickly, just so it feels warm and inviting and there's not, stuff strewn everywhere. And those little things that she puts so much thought into just to make things feel better goes so far. The little things matter so much. We were cleaning today because we're hosting Thanksgiving in a couple of days, and all of our family will be over, and we were talking about how all these little things matter. We're cleaning little things that we normally gloss over because it's sort of insignificant to us, but all of these little things matter to people that will be in our home, to make them feel better and make them feel like they're welcomed and let me put effort and energy into making them feel good here. And that's all her. She's got a list and like a chart for days that we need to do everything. So if you fight about things such as that, those are easily worked through. And it's usually a misunderstanding and a lack of communication. We talk extensively. We spend a lot of time together. Where if we're not in our offices at our day jobs a few days a week, we're usually working from home together and then together on the weekends and at nights most of the time, unless there's a rare circumstance where one of us goes to do something. And there's a lot of time to talk and to communicate and to listen and to understand and to feel. And I think our relationship is the better for it, of course. So if you're having a miscommunication that's been going on for years, months, weeks, days, hours, whatever it is, you can talk through it. It's okay to ask the uncomfortable questions. I used to not. I used to just hold things in, hoping that they would go away, and they don't. They just explode at a later point in time, and that's not good for anybody. So I've learned to say things more in the moment, and whether it's uncomfortable or not, usually it's not. It's just something that is. It's not a big deal at all. So, getting into dating. If you're single and you don't know how to date now with technology, say you've been married for 20 or 30 years, you're freshly divorced, or find yourself in a new situation where you're single, how do you do it? There's a number of old school ways you could do. You could go to bars, you could go to the dog park, the library, networking events, professional events. There are singles cruises, all sorts of things like that. I would recommend online dating just because it cuts out a bit of the BS about it, and it allows you to look at a lot more options in a short amount of time. You could look through hundreds of profiles and not find anybody, and that's a lot less time consuming and less taxing on your energy for most people than going on 100 dates or going on a singles cruise. I've never been on one, so I'm speaking in, kind of out of my head here. But instead of just browsing through everybody on the ship, I would assume that's how that works. No harm, no foul with online dating. If you send a few messages and nobody responds, then cool, they're not the person for you. If you send a few messages and somebody does respond, then proceed with caution because you want to be safe and mindful about it. A few things to do with your dating profile. I would make sure that you have several good pictures of your face and at least one full body shot. You don't want to be the person that just looks like this and you can't see the rest of your body. Do you weigh 50 pounds or do you weigh 500 pounds? Are you tall? Are you short? What's your body language like? What do you wear? What's your dress? Who's around you? What's around you? What are you doing? If you travel, if you do sports, if you have hobbies, include photos like that. Tosca's profile included some of her weightlifting. There was one of her squatting. Looked really cool. Showed who she was, what she was into, what she was about, and that's really important. It was a very important part of her life at the time. Put on there in word format, what are your hobbies? What do you spend your time doing? Don't talk too much about your job, unless that is truly your passion, but again, still keep it short. Put if you have pets or not, if you don't like pets, or if you do. If you travel, if you have kids, keep it pretty broad, but also don't write a novel about yourself. Nobody wants to read that much. Our attention spans are pretty short. Include some quirky things. If your favorite movie is Pinocchio, then put that. If you love to eat sushi every night and that's all you ever eat, put that. Put these little nuances that people like to know that would make you stick out and memorable and also humanize you. Once you start communicating with people, don't send inappropriate photos, don't ask inappropriate questions, and treat yourself or treat the other person as you would treat a friend. Don't, you don't want to end up on a BuzzFeed article with 20 things you shouldn't say on a dating site. That's not cool. Nobody should be that person. just be decent. Like, this is hard for me because I can't imagine what prompts people to do those things that are so highly inappropriate and disrespectful. Like, do you truly think that somebody's going to want to, like, go out with you and do other things with you if you're just, like, being completely disrespectful and inappropriate? That's not becoming at all. So if you're one of those people that have done that before or think that's a good approach, we need some one-on-one coaching, and I'll help you with that, but it's going to be really hard for you. Let's see. Communication style. Once you start messaging with someone, most people will flake out within a few days before they commit to a date if it proceeds that far. But just respond in a timely manner. It doesn't have to be immediate. So when Tosca and I were messaging and texting before we met for our first date, and I already knew that she had a kid and that she worked. I worked. I have dogs. So people have lives, and we don't have to respond, the minute that we receive a message. But our messages were also pretty lengthy, and so we would each take, hour or two, few hours, whatever we were doing, to provide a thorough response. And to me, that mattered tremendously, much more than getting a one-word answer quickly. I would much rather know, like, more about her, and the notion that she took to take the time to respond so thoroughly and considerately really mattered, because not many people will do that, and not many people will maintain that going on an ongoing basis. And so we had really good and comfortable communication even before we met or had talked on the phone or anything like that. And I just think that set up our entire relationship, because that's how it is. We have really good and respectful and thorough communication even now. If somebody stops responding, don't send 15 messages saying, "Are you there?" or "Are you going to respond?" Just let it go. Like, if somebody doesn't respond to you, then you're obviously, like, not the right person for them. You're not a good match. Just go on. Don't get emotional or crazy about it. It's not worth anybody's time. Once you do meet, if you feel like, this is going well, I would like to meet this person, meet somewhere in public, keep it comfortable, keep it easy, keep it respectful. Don't get drunk on the first date. Stories like that make me cringe. And, while it might work out for some people, it just seems like you're setting yourself up for failure and not success. And why would you do anything like that if you're trying to seriously find the person that you want to spend your time with and spend your life with? Why would you start off like that? Again, maybe it works for some people, but stories like that just make me cringe, because I think, what's going on, that you can't just, go out and meet someone and have a coffee or a meal or whatever the case is. Once you do start dating, that's really a whole nother set of topics that we can get into. The progression, the timelines, how things can go, how they should go, things to do, not to do. It really depends on the two people involved and the situation, if there are kids, if they're in the same city, if it's long distance, if it's, all of these different factors come into play that we can get into separately. So, going back to kind of our progression is using that as a summary and a bit of a baseline here. So we went on our first date, and we've seen each other every day since, and that was almost a year ago. The exceptions are, I had to go to a family trip in Colorado for a few days for a death in the family, and I went on a business trip to California in August, and we've literally seen each other every day. There was one night early on where she said, "You have stuff to do. I'll see you tomorrow." Like, she was trying to, I give her a bit of shit about it now because it's so funny, but she's like, "We don't have to see each other every day. Like, you have stuff to do, and I don't want to take away from that." And I was like, okay, fine. So I showed her, I went to like 3 Targets and bought all of the favorite wine that they had in stock of hers. And then we went and looked at Christmas lights later that evening. So that's how our relationship went. Not to say that that's normal or that's how everybody's will go. But we just needed to be around each other. We both felt like we had been searching for each other for so long. Like, we finally found each other, and why would we spend time apart? That just seems silly. It didn't feel like we needed time apart. If we did, then we would have given each other that, but we didn't feel the need for it. And so we progressed really quickly, because when you're spending that much time with each other, you get to know each other really fast, and everything just pointed to yes. Like, nothing ever pointed to no. And there were so many things at a logical level. We can get into the emotional and energetic part of it, but at an emotional level, everything just felt safe. At a logical level, everything just made sense. At an energetic level, the first time I saw Trevor's face in a photo that she sent me, and she sent me a video of them laughing, laying in a hammock, I knew that he was the young blonde kid I'd been dreaming about for years. And, everything just made so much sense. And, that of all things just brought everything together. And so little things like that just kept happening. And again, nothing ever pointed to no. Everything just was like, yes. And things became so easy. Like, what used to be hard, either by myself or in previous relationships, were just so easy and smooth. Like, we don't fight. We'll have a disagreement or something like that, but we haven't had a fight that to date in 50 weeks or so. So things just flow easily. We meet so many people that are amazing that she didn't meet before or really interact with, like neighbors and folks at the school and things of that nature. And just, everything just comes together when you're with the right person. So we went through a period of, she felt like I was sacrificing. I'll go back to that, because I used to travel pretty extensively. I was ready for them, though. I had traveled pretty extensively for several years, both for work and for pleasure. And for about 6 weeks or so before we met, I got really introverted and a bit anxious, because I could feel something was coming, but I didn't know what. And I didn't know if it was her. I didn't know what it was. I just felt really anxious and a bit restless, and I just knew something was coming. But again, I had no idea what. And so I spent a lot of time at home, reading, writing, listening to the Nutcracker Suite on YouTube. I probably listened to it 100 times. And I just got really into my head, and really, I was really just trying to explore different things, trying to figure out if it was a business thing that was right around the corner, if it was a partnership, like a business partnership, or a trip. Like, I'd planned a couple of trips for the year that ended up like not going on after we met, because I was just searching for something, trying to figure out what it was. And then we met, and like I said, everything just fell into place, like, so beautifully. So to prepare myself, this was years in the making, obviously, but I'd already done the things that I felt like I needed to do, such as traveling and finding myself and figuring out who I was. Had we met in our early 20s, it wouldn't have been this easy, for sure. It would have been hard. Like, I had to learn who I was, and she had to learn who she was, and she had Trevor in her early 20s, and that's a whole experience in itself. I mean, figuring out who you are as a person, but then being responsible for a little baby and a toddler. And we talk about this all the time. Like, it would have been amazing had we just met in our early 20s, but it also would have been quite the struggle, because we weren't the same people then. I was very quiet and passive, and quite naive about a lot of things that I wanted to do. And I hadn't been anywhere to speak of yet. I hadn't figured out who and what I was in the world. And now that I have done a lot of those things, I'm much more confident and peaceful and loving for it. And so things happen when they're supposed to. So if you feel like you're in a place of frustration and, like you're not in the right place, or you're not with the right people, or you're not with the right person, or you're not at the right job, or whatever the case is, then know that you can change your situation, but also know that you're learning these things for a reason. Oh God.